creating that framework and establishing a plan and not deviating from it, to me, that's part of a foundation of like, for me, creating another level of integrity in my life. I felt so forgotten. I felt so passed over. I felt so insignificant. And it's like, there's just a reversal of that, an overcompensation of that, where it's like, now you're never going to forget about me. You'll never look away from me. And now I'm just gaining, like at an alarming rate. I want there to be complete transparency for the person that is the subscriber, but also for me, for sure. It keeps me engaged and it keeps me accountable and motivated to continue to go. Where it's like, look, like, assume that your 3 reps in reserve is wrong on week 1. And that's fine. It literally doesn't even matter where you start. Like, as long as you're not starting at failure, like, you can understand all the secrets of the universe and life through training. The more you understand training principles, the more you'll actually understand yourself. And the more you understand yourself, the more you'll be able to learn how to train effectively.
So, Pat, last time we had you on the show, it was the most unexpected show that I have had in 105 episodes. We came on thinking we were going to talk about exercise mechanics and anterior pelvic tilt and function and breath work. And then we talked about your story and confidence and communication skills and battles with addiction and all this sort of stuff that I wasn't expecting at all, but was way better than I thought. Before we delve into your recent transformation, has this process of getting in what I presume is probably the best shape of your life from a aesthetic standpoint, has this changed anything in terms of how you present, much confidence you have, your communication with clients, or has that not really changed in this process?
That's a good question. I think, for me, I've always had like a pretty low opinion of my own appearance. And from what I understand, that's a very common presentation for particularly people with addiction problems. It's sort of like, where do addictions rise from? And the answer to that appears to be low self-worth. And, so that kind of makes sense. Like, if you have low self-worth, then why would you think that you look good or any of those other things? Now, interestingly, oftentimes when you talk with addicts that are in recovery, there's certain things that emerge from there's, I like FBI profiling shows. Like, a lot of times they might be about serial killers or something, but there's like some pretty decent profile information on addicts. And, some of the things that you'll hear are like egomaniacs with inferiority complexes, or like, just thin-skinned children and hypersensitive people. That's really a big part of the profile of anyone with addiction problems. So there's a very thin, like, you might see someone that's like, really like that swings back and forth between like grandiosity on one side and then absolute worst case scenario on the other side. There's like very little in between. And the recovery process for addicts oftentimes tries to show them the in-between. Like, this is not the greatest moment in the history of the world, and it's also not the worst thing that's ever happened. Like, can you begin to see, can you begin to live in the middle so that you're, when there's moments of jubilation, they don't sweep you away. And when there's times of like resentment towards another person, you don't get sucked into that like vortex of negative spin. So, for me, appearance is one of those things where it can be that same swing. Like, wow, I feel great about myself. I look amazing. Actually, that's a very thin veneer kind of a feeling. And if like when push comes to shove, I'm very doubtful about that. So it's kind of like, for me, trying to find that middle ground and then actually having some semblance of my own personal self-worth around that topic, as opposed to being very dependent upon external validation without any. So it's kind of like what I usually try to work for in life is doing things for myself and trying to be proud of myself and avoiding some of the trappings of like, you know, do I really need to put this out there for the world, or do I really need someone else to come along and say, wow, you look great, or you know, good job, or whatever? Because, you know, so many of these things were founded from a place of like childhood neglect or, you know, shame or those kinds of things. And so whenever you deal with someone with like that origin of neglect and desire for attention and validation, like, you know, like an addict, I myself, like I can create like elaborate mechanisms for drawing attention to myself and needing that for like without self-worth, you're not going to have much self-esteem. And therefore you need to draw your esteem from external sources. You know, when I was younger, it needed to be with sports and like having coaches be like, that was a great job. That was amazing. Or, you know, just anything. That was where I drew any sort of sense of self from. And it's been a battle for me to be able to monitor that stuff of like, you know, do I feel good right now because someone else did something that was externally validating? Or do I feel good right now because I genuinely like, you know, I genuinely do. And I've found that I usually feel good about myself whenever there's a strong backbone of integrity to a process. And integrity to me is just simply the act of doing what you said you were going to do, even when it gets really difficult to do that. So, you know, like what the parts of it that I'm really, yeah, like I like the way that I look right now, and I like the process I went through to get here, because I like created a plan and I stuck to that plan, and I stuck to that plan like while I was traveling and doing seminars, and that's really challenging to do. Like, you know, hungry, stressed, tired on the road, restaurant food. Like, am I, you know?
And then having to put on a performance, right? You have to put on a performance on the seminar. If you're tired and hungry and not wanting to be there, your audience can't see that.
Right. And then being out with people after, like, am I going to binge and eat dessert, or am I going to like actually find a middle ground? You know, like I'm going to eat a normal sized dinner and stop there. Like, finding, and then like, because I can swing like, oh, I've ruined everything. I had restaurant food. No, it's fine. Like I did it with moderation, and you know, but I have like real strong problems with perfectionism over those things. Like if it's not perfect, I want to tear it up and throw it on the ground and light it on fire or something like that. And then I can bail on a plan because it wasn't perfect, you know. But this has been kind of like, no, I understand the limitations and what's involved right now. I'm just going to do the best I can with the current confines. And then when it's time to get back on track at home, I'll get back on track. I'm not going to burn the house down when there's challenge. And I'm not going to be too critical of myself for how I operate during these challenge points. But yeah, I think that it's much more of like I did this process for myself, really. Like I wanted to really go through an experience of, you know, measuring and tracking and being guided by a system like the RP Diet App system and seeing what that's like. And then just like, if I go through this process, what kind of product comes out on the back end? And, and it was like I set out beforehand saying like, here's my goal and here's my process. And I'm going to try to stick to that process. And by creating that framework and establishing a plan and not deviating from it, to me, that's part of a foundation of like, for me, creating another level of integrity in my life. And with that, I think that like, you know, I personally need like guideposts to be able to say in certain areas of my life, like, yeah, you're doing this for the right reasons, you know? And I think that those guideposts that I established helped me to be able to feel like I did this for the right reasons and stayed on a trajectory that was sort of, created for the right reasons as well.
Before going on to the follow-up question I had about that, I always feel a little bit safer when I hear someone's really into sort of like serial killer documentaries. Because I have a theory that people who are fascinated by serial killers are the least likely to be serial killers. Based off the fact that we are fascinated by these shows based on the fact that it's so alien from what we think about reality. Whereas if someone's bored by serial killer documentary, I'm like, if this isn't strange to you, then I'm not going to spend time with you anywhere near any sharp objects.
You know what's crazy, and this is a tough topic to get into. Like I think that I'm really interested in those from the perspective of like when I see the profiles of their upbringings, it's not that different from my own. And I think that I happen to fall into the specific shoots of addiction that I did. And I don't know what causes someone to go into the shoot of serial killer. You know what I mean? I think that maybe there's some, genetic brain thing that is involved with like sociopathy and psychopathy. And I don't believe that I'm either a sociopath or a psychopath, but I think that if you have the predisposition genetically for those things and you combine that with the same sort of like neglect combined with like really domineering female caregiver element, because like it seems as though that's the critical piece is like they always have like this really over the top domineering female caregiver that and then an absent father, and combined with oftentimes like sexual abuse or something like that. And it's just sort of like, it's like, hey, if that's the recipe for like cooking one of them, and like I have a lot of similar elements that kind of formed me from an environmental perspective. And I'm kind of like, man, I'm really grateful that I didn't wind up over on that camp of this spectrum of like, because I think that in really, I've seen a lot of these things. I've looked into these profile kinds of things. Like it's just another part of the addiction spectrum. It's a compulsive syndrome that is like kind of like their drug of choice, so to speak.
To continue the tangent with this a little bit, like we spoke a little bit off air about the reasons why you don't want to be employed, the reason why you like being self-employed. We talked about disagreeableness. Yeah. Do you think there's an element of there with like a domineering female caregiver and a, absent father? Do you think this is the reason why a lot of people are thinking now that the people considering masculine traits toxic is causing more dangerous people? If you think about Jordan Peterson talks about the most dangerous man is the person who's demasculated. Do you think this is potentially an impact of creating men to potentially be more dangerous? And why you might not have ended up on that path is because despite your own issues with insecurity, you've got a level of self-assurance and those masculine traits of disagreeableness and at least are outwardly self-confident.
Yeah, I think I've had historical problems with women. I really have. And I think that working through therapy and other things, like it makes perfect sense that I have like a lot of my exposures from a young age were, ones that like, largely I come away from a lot of those experiences with like either a neglect bias or a lack of trust bias or a imposed upon bias or just a lot of those things. And so it's kind of like, that's my foundational stuff is like, just all of those elements. And as a result of that, I think that when I'm challenged by a woman or questioned or feel like I'm done wrong by a woman, it's a stronger response for me than when that comes from a man. I have, I would say that I operate from a place of probably distrust with both genders. And, insecurity with both genders, but that it's more severe with women than it is with men. And I also, I know that, like, you know, as a child, I learned to overact to get attention from women. And oftentimes, even with that, it was not met on a level that I would need. And so now it is a similar thing where I can over try in the beginning, and sometimes it feels like that works, and it almost is like a euphoric experience for me. Like, oh my God, she sees me, she loves me, this is amazing. And I can fall into those kinds of trappings. And it's like the greatest drug I've ever experienced. Like, oh, this woman is enamored with me. But as soon as like that, and of course that's like fantasy, you know, it really is. Like, it's not really rooted in reality all that well. But as soon as there's a crack in that facade, it really like can hit me to my core. And that can be devastating for me from the standpoint of like wanting retribution or feeling like I was done dirty, or those are like really deep, visceral feelings for me. And so it's really tough because I know that my reactions are fairly, like, they can be over the top, and they're over the top because they're historically rooted in a lot of pain and confusion and things like that. And so it's like, for me, having that awareness to try to pause under those circumstances, like, okay, I'm really going to a place that's not appropriate from a response standpoint. I need to remove myself from this environment for a little while. I need to breathe. I need to kind of get control of myself, because I'm not actually communicating and reacting to this current person. I'm communicating and reacting to memories that I have from 30 years ago, you know? And that's a very, like, I think for me, I really like being competent and highly skilled and professional. And during points where I'm not able to operate under those conditions, again, my perfectionism is something that I really struggle with. I want to always be perfect and always say things exactly the right way and always have the correct answer. And if I don't, and if I'm being confronted with that or challenged with that, oh my God, like the response I can have can be ugly. And so it's like, it's just a gigantic learning process, because I'm a well-intended person who has some like fairly like open, hard to deal with wounds that when someone can salt them in the moment can sting and cause me to respond in ways that I don't feel good about, and after the fact can be embarrassed about, or, you know, be like, man, what was that all about? Or I can kind of pump myself into like bravado mode and anger mode or overreaction mode that I like sometimes, you know, like, oh yeah, like almost like a gorilla beating its chest or something like that. So it's, I think that yeah, I know that I am still operating and dealing with tremendous insecurity that can make me more needy than is appropriate. And that high neediness, oftentimes, need of validation, need of someone liking me, need of people agreeing with me or acknowledging that I'm smart and wonderful. You know, those are characteristics that are, I think, potentially inflammatory for me, so that now I start to operate in a place that can be damaging or offensive to other people. And it's funny that I just think that where it comes from is usually a place where I really want to impress you. I really want to impress you. I really want you to think highly of me. And the moment that you don't, you threaten my existence, because my existence is not coming from a place of self-worth, but externally validated worth. And when you don't give that to me, ooh, I'll fucking show you. I will show you. And this is the biggest mistake you ever made, to doubt me and to not see me and to not praise me or something like that. And I'll never let you forget about it. And I will punish you with this until the end of time. So that sort of like vindictive retribution style that I can have, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is it's not about even this other person. It's about me and what I didn't get and what I needed that I'll never get, but ultimately have to learn to teach myself to give myself, that adult, strong part of me that can learn and overcome, really taking care of the other part of me inside that is this module of a hurt, neglected, sad child that wanted so much that I didn't get. And now that element of me can be brought up in the worst of moments. And that's the part that you're seeing and interacting with. And of course, that's not a reasonable part of me. And so that's kind of what I think of in terms of like the real nature of like when I can be this toxic figure, and I can be, and I have been, and I certainly can be presently and probably will be in the future. Hopefully less than I used to be, hopefully less in the future than I am now. But it's, I'm not alone, you know what I mean? And it's not just men, it's anybody. So it's really tough to hear about like, it's all toxic masculine. No, it's just like hurt people hurt people.
I couldn't agree more with that. It's interesting that you brought up perfectionism, but I think listening to your story, it highlights to me how, and part of the reason why I did this podcast, how interesting human beings are, because there is so much of what you're saying there about, like, that resonate with my story and that sense of having to prove something to somebody, and that being a big part of my self-confidence and my self-worth, which is very similar. But my background to you was, I don't feel I had a neglected childhood. I never suffered with addiction, but it's weird how we're all so similar despite very different backgrounds. That the same endpoint has sort of been achieved between the two of us here, that I could totally resonate with everything that you said. Do you think there's an element with your perfectionism? You went into a career that you sought out control. What can I control around exercise? What can I control in the science field? Like, this I'm looking to find truth in stuff, where when you start talking to the opposite sex, there is stuff that is now out of your control. Is that why that's more of a challenging aspect, do you think, than other potential aspects of your life?
I think so. And, I am always reminded of something that Jordan Peterson talked about in his main book of, that I can relate to, where as a man, I feel like there's a pull for me to create structure and systems in my life, and to have almost like a militant level of like sameness. You know what I mean? Yeah. And oftentimes the women that I find to be incredibly attractive to me are the ones that pull me out of my routine. Like they've got some freedom to them that I don't have myself. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to do this today. This is the next thing. This is the next thing. And they've got some like sort of like fly by the seat of their pants element or whatever. And it's almost like I get to be swept off on a magic carpet ride with them. And because I feel like I can't do that on my own. Like, I don't even know how to do that. And it's intoxicating. But oftentimes that same woman can also be someone that disappoints me, And when that disappointment or they, mistrust me when I'm being truthful or something along those lines, they give me some feedback that I'm like, wait a minute, oh, you're just another one of these, fill in the blanks, or like, I felt special to you, but now I'm perceiving you as someone who, the minute that you see another shiny ball, you're going to forget about me and you're going to be enamored with that. And as a result of this feeling that I now have, like, I don't like you and I don't like you strongly. And, and then of course, all of that stuff just goes back to that lack of self-worth in me of like, because I think a secure person would be like, well, you know what, if they see another shiny ball and they just think that it's better than me, then like the hell with them. Like, that's sort of like, that's on them. Like, that's their deal. And like, they're just going to keep doing that for the rest of their life. And that's going to be a problem for them. Like, that's a path to unhappiness for that person. For me, it's so personal. How dare you? I'll show you, like, I'm the best shiny ball you've ever encountered in your life. And it's just so crazy because it is like attempts to control another person. I'll show you. I'm trying to control you. Never let you forget about me, because I felt so forgotten. I felt so passed over. I felt so insignificant. And it's like there's just a reversal of that, an overcompensation of that, where it's like, now you're never going to forget about me. You'll never look away from me. All of these things are built into as a defense against that stuff. So those feel like very chaotic, out of control elements for me. And I think that where I fell in love with exercise was with playing sports and being good at sports, and the rules are the same. The equipment is the same. If I work hard, I'll probably get better. It's sort of like this very clear, more black and white environment. That's out of bounds. This is in bounds. None of this sort of like, how do I, keep your attention?
Yes. There's no nuance to it, right? There's no subjectiveness to it. Like,
yeah.
Do you think the fitness industry, there are absolute Casanova playboys in the fitness industry for sure. They're the ones with the blue ticks on Instagram. But like, do you think the fitness industry as a whole, and certainly the people who are very, very good at it, encourage these kind of people with like inferiority complexes and people who have something to prove? Because again, going back to what I said earlier, we both have a very, very similar endpoint with very different backstories, which makes me think there are probably other people, very different upbringings, all coming into this with similar, if not the same feelings. So do you think the fitness industry encourages these kind of people to get involved that have something to prove to themselves or others?
I think there is some sort of like selection bias for the fitness industry. You know what I mean? It's not, I think that there's a higher proportion of people that come from similar backgrounds. I think there's a lot of females that have eating disorder problems, which is, it's like I said, like when I'm talking about serial killers, like it's another shoot. It's the most extreme shoot, serial killers. I'm not trying to, I am comparing eating disorders to serial killers. I'm just saying that it's the same spectrum. It's just severity of where you lie on the spectrum and like the shoot that you end up in. But it's all, all of these things are avenues of trying to exert control for people that feel like they grew up with no control, no autonomy, no control, and their attempts to be able to establish control wherever you can. Even nail biters are the same thing. It's like they have control over finishing this project because they can't finish anything else in their life. And at least with this, they know that they can start something and end something that's very satisfying. So
do you think on that note, like our jobs, our livelihoods are there to try and make people feel better, be more confident, look better? But do you think some of these things have actually ended up being a detriment to some people? Because like there's that phrase that the day you start training is the day you're forever small, right? And like, I know it may be slightly different when you were a strongman competitor, but now you look like you do. If you ever got back to the strongman physique you had before, that mindset would be totally different. That wouldn't be as okay, I don't think, as it would be before. And I'm like this, when I get a bit softer, like to another person, you still look good. To me, I'm like, yeah, I'm fat. Do you think it messes more with the psyche once you get into it? Because now the level of what is good goes up tenfold.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when I competed in strongman, it was the 175 pound division, which is like, then it sort of shifts to like the under 90 kg. So it's like I was very lean competing in strongman. And when I fought professionally, I fought at 154.5 pounds, which is, even lighter. It's I'm not even sure how many. I don't know what the kilos are on that, but it's like, I was lean and light and very like fast and agile, and it's a smaller weight class. So, I competed in weight class sports for let me think, like 5 years with fight sports and 3 years with strongman. So I've done 8 years total of weight class sports. And when I finished fighting, I gained 60 pounds in 6 months, which is a huge amount of weight to gain. What's that, like 25 kilos or something like
what
that.
What do you think led to that?
It was very challenging for me to get that light for fighting, and it was very restrictive. And I was also, when I stopped fighting, I was 24 years old. Like I was starting grad school, and I was also hanging around people, like I was getting into strength and conditioning and hanging around people that wanted to be weightlifters. And that, like, culturally, it was like, let's get big. And sort of like, I was excited, like, hey, this is a different thing. I think just sort of like the trajectory career wise I wanted to go on. And so it was like, I was very grateful to be able to eat. Like I really wanted to just eat dessert. And, I was young when I was fighting, and I didn't have an exercise science background at the time. I was a history major, and I just did what the other guys that were elite fighters did, which we just basically didn't eat any carbs. I ate salad and tuna fish over and over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over.
I still can't eat mackerel for my first diet for exactly the same reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I've had tuna fish since then. And with strongman, I was further along. At the time, I listened to a lot of Rob Wolf's podcast, and I got into a paleo diet. And so I just ate like sweet potato and, protein sources and vegetables. But in hindsight, if I had been measuring macros, like, you have to eat a shitload of sweet potatoes to be able to actually hit your carbs. I was probably like significantly shifted. And I ate a lot of like avocado and coconut oil at the time too. So I was like probably from a performance standpoint, like way too far towards fats, nowhere near enough carbs. That can work, and it certainly did work. I never missed a weigh-in ever. Like, I always said to every competitor, like, the only people that miss weight are the people that don't want to compete. Like by some way, shape, or form, I'm going to make weight. And again, like it was a struggle though to get my body weight to the competitive weigh-in weight for strongman. And when I got done with that, I think that again I went from 175 pounds. Within probably like 4 or 5 years, I was up to 235 pounds. I had gained 60 pounds again, with just like ad libitum, non-goal based eating and training. And, I think that where it got to was like, this would have been like 2019, I was 235 pounds. And that's 50 pounds more than where I weigh right now. And I definitely heard criticism at that point. Like the other people I worked with were on me about that. You know what I mean? They would definitely make fun of me. And I would hear things online too. Like I remember the first time reading someone calling me Fat Davidson. And that was like, oof, damn.
How did that feel for a man you spent so much of your life trying to prove that you're smart and worthy, and you've gone and got a master's and a PhD, and you are one of the, I will, wholeheartedly say one of the smartest guys in the industry, and that is the feedback. Like, you've worked so hard.
Yeah.
Like, how did that feel when that was the feedback, despite the
well,
content
it's like
you're
a
putting
total, chip on the shoulder feeling for me, where it's like, fuck you, like I want to kill you. You know what I mean? Like I will gladly invite you to wherever I am, and I will fucking brutalize you with my hands, and let's film it. You know what I mean? Like,
that's good content.
Yeah, like let's do this. And it's kind of like, you don't know me. Like, I've been shredded before in my life. I can remember competing in the 2014 Strongman World Championships and weighing it at 174 pounds and shredded to the bone. Glute striations, everything striated, like you name it. And, pretty close to where I am right now. Like, I think that it's like pretty comparable. Like, I've been here before. This isn't my first rodeo with like following something and getting lean. Like when I fought at 154 and a half pounds, I was lean, very lean. So it was like, man, are you kidding me? Like, I guess this is, if you don't, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? I am fucking fat right now. No question. I'm fat. And this is bothering me. And I guess that like there is a recency bias. People don't know that like 7 years ago I was competing for a world championship in super lean. They have no idea. They just see what's here right now. Like, you know, they weren't in this field then. They're a young person that's in this field now. And they didn't know who I was then. They only know this thing right now in front of them. And so it was like, I remember at that point being like, you know, I really do have to do something about this. And like, I kind of started this process New Year's of 2020. And it was like, you know, my initial approaches weren't that great. Like, it was like, I'm not going to measure anything. I'm just going to sort of like stop eating when I'm still hungry. And there wasn't enough of a goal. There wasn't enough structure. There wasn't enough of any of those things. I ultimately kept sort of refining and dialing in more and more. And it was really COVID that helped me get on track with this stuff more than anything, believe it or not, that really got me going in the right direction. And by probably like, you know, somewhere around May or June of that first year of COVID, I started with the RP app. And it was like rough in the beginning. I didn't really know how to use it all that well. It took me a couple of weeks to like dial it in, and my compliance wasn't that good, but it still worked really well. Like, I still started getting great results, and then I started dialing it in better and better and better over time. And it hasn't been a rush process. Like, when I was competing in strongman, I sort of rushed my way to weight initially, and no, this has just been like, I'm going to turn my own thoughts and my own whatever over to this app and just kind of listen to it. And I'll tell it my goal, but then I'm just going to kind of like fall in line with whatever its recommendations are. And over time, it gets smarter with me and I get smarter with it. And now, like, this is not like, I am not uncomfortable existing in this place right now. I'm not hungry right now. I'm in maintenance, and I'm holding on to this place for the last few weeks, very little training and very little effort from a dieting standpoint. And I never did maintenance anything years ago. I didn't even know it was a topic. Maintenance. Like, it's either full throttle or we're going, you know, off the deep end the other way. But, you know, I'm on 6 weeks of maintenance. Maintenance will end after next week. And then I'll be on another trajectory for gaining mass again, but with like even a more refined, intelligent approach to it.
I think maintenance is an interesting word, because I was very much in the thought process that you just said you were, that it's either full throttle or off. And I think that maintenance is a good goal in theory, but what you don't want is a maintenance mindset. Now, what I presume with you now, you're on maintenance calories, but you're still pushing for stuff in the gym. What you often see is when people go into maintenance is like, well, I can take the foot off the gas a little bit.
No,
and
it's kind of like,
how you maintain is you push in the gym and to maintain those calories, even if you're not training quite as much, I presume.
This is the easiest training that I do. You know, it's like I'm at maintenance calorie. I'm not in a place where I would lose fat, and I'm not in a place where I would gain muscle. So I'm just going to do the minimum training wise, because, you know, I have enough calories where I won't be losing muscle, but I don't have enough calories where I would be building muscle. So it actually is a place of like neutral. Like, I don't need to put my foot on the gas. Like, yeah. And look, like, it's not like I go in there and do sets that are like RIR of 10 reps or something like that. Like, you know, I think that anybody watching would be like, well, that guy pushed himself pretty friggin' hard on that set. But it's just sort of like, you know, status quo, normal level effort for me. But it's pretty low sets. You know, it's like, it's been, you know, like 4 sets per muscle group per week, roughly for me. No, 6 sets per muscle group per week, but that's not much. You know, if I'm in fat loss, I know that I have to increase the effort, because the calorie deficit, I'll lose muscle tissue if I don't work harder. And if I'm in surplus, now you got to make hay while the sun's shining. But I do feel like maintenance is this place where it's like, you're not going anywhere. But it's, you know, like, so don't increase the effort because you're shoveling shit against the tide. But at the same time, don't do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. As regards to like going back a little bit into the gaining weight phase, I remember a post you did a while back talking about when you first had your first set of pictures before this set and you were starting to really, really get lean. You talked about like the effort you put in whilst building calories, the intensity of training hard was an important factor while you had all this muscle underneath. With the beauty of hindsight now, what is your thought process now of what people will call a dirty bulk? From I'm going to eat what I can and train hard. Do you think it's useful? Yeah. Or in hindsight now, would you do it completely different? Because you've built a lot of muscle and stayed very lean in the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, so, from an annual planning perspective, like I did a body comp measurement with DEXA last year, right at this time, basically. And it was right before starting a muscle building phase, and a massing phase, bulking phase. And when I started it, like I was gaining, I just click on the RP app and it's like, choose your goal. And I'm like, muscle gain. Okay, here we go. And it has a recommended timeline and amount of weight. And I think it was like 8 pounds over 10 weeks or something along those lines. And so, boom, I clicked on that. And like, here we go. That's an appropriate, normal amount. And it was going perfectly like steady and slow incremental progress. And then I got this horrendous stomach bug at Christmas. And I lost 9 pounds that week. And so, the things tracking your weight, I was weighing in and it was like, boom, it plummeted. And it's just a computer algorithm. So it was like, you need a large nutrient increase. And I was like, boom, let's go large nutrient increase. And it bumped my weight kind of back up, but it, it was taking a little bit. And then like in the following week, it was like, you need another large nutrient increase. And I was like, yes, let's do it. And so it was just an overreaction in some ways because of this acute, sickness, weight loss. But I overreacted emotionally too. I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be gaining 8 pounds and I'm 9 pounds in the hole right now. What do I do? And I'll tell you, like, after that second week of like the nutrient increases, I was already back above and over the trend line of like, I think, I had regained certainly all the weight that I had lost. And I think I had gained an additional 3 pounds or something like that. So
when you say nutrient increase, not calorie increase, right? You just improve the nutrient density.
It just calls it a nutrient increase, but you're going to, it'll increase your macros, which is your calories. So it was just like this monstrous increase though. And because of sickness and then, just really me overreacting and the app just doing what it should do. But again, like now I'm in this double increase and I'm on this for good. You know what I mean? Going forward, I didn't select to decrease at any point. And now I'm just gaining like at an alarming rate. Cause I think it went from somewhere like, maybe like 400 grams of carbs up to like 600 grams of carbs and like a significant increase in fat too, probably like 80 grams of fat up to like 110 grams of fat.
That'll do it.
Yeah, like exactly. Like it was just like boom. And I'm just going to keep riding this. And eventually, I did however long the muscle mass gaining phase was, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it was. And then I think I did maintenance for like 2-3 weeks, something like that. And then selected another muscle gaining. But I was gaining weight through maintenance because the maintenance was still based on the calories of what was before it. So I basically just spent like 24 straight weeks in surplus, but a large surplus because of that overreaction. And by the end of it, I think I was at like 680 grams of carbs a day and 125 grams of fat and, 210 grams of protein. It was an enormous amount of food. And it was just a horrendous experience trying to eat all that food, like every day, just eating to the point where I felt sick. And, I gained 24 pounds across that. And then when I measured, it was 9 pounds of muscle that I had gained, 11 pounds of fat, and then sort of like whatever other kinds of fluid or bone mineral or whatever kind of comes along the way. But it was an overreaction to a little like bump in the road that I fell victim to, and I didn't course correct after that. I just sort of like, well, let's just see what happens. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? Like, but and then I wasn't purely training for aesthetics going forward either. Like it was like, I'm doing a track and field program basically across the summer. And so I lost 33 pounds across the the track training stuff. And when I remeasured on the DEXA after 24 weeks of track training, I had lost 24 pounds of fat, but I had also lost 8 pounds of that muscle tissue that I had gained. I had gained 9 and then I lost 8. I had lost in the course of a year, calendar year, I had dropped 4 pounds of fat and I had gained 1 pound of muscle. And so in hindsight, going forward, it's kind of like, okay, I learned a really valuable lesson about that overreaction to getting sick and seeing that kind of a weight drop. It's temporary. It's like largely fluid, and it'll bounce back quick. Like there's no need to be emotionally overreactive. Kind of like be more moderate in the approach to recapturing that lost weight. Because I was like freaking out, man. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to catch up to this lost weight. Never. I'm going to finish this whole, muscle gaining thing, and I'm going to be net down. Like this was terrible. No, it wasn't even close. Like I, gained like somewhere insane, like 30 something pounds after being sick. Like it was comically, beginner level error sort of a thing. But the other piece of it was that clearly during a deficit, like if the majority of the volume is running and the lifting is like status quo and flat from a volume standpoint, I'm going to lose muscle tissue. I would really, going into next year, because my goal is to compete in a bodybuilding contest now, I'm going to have way, it's not going to be a running program next summer. It's going to be a lifting program with contest dieting starting in, probably, July or something like that. And I think that, doing the deficit and using progressively overloading resistance training volume will be the thing that will hold the muscle tissue. And I think that I can probably do a more pinpoint gaining phase this winter as well, where I won't gain as much weight, but it also will be like, I'll probably, hopefully gain the same amount of muscle tissue and then not gain all of the unnecessary fat on top of it. So it's like just way more targeted in the approach, and hopefully even like less effort in some ways to acquire the goal that I actually want from it.
So if you had someone that came to you is like, let's say you, but 5 years ago, and is saying like, I want to put on X amount of muscle, I want to look like you, would you encourage them to go through a phase of real purposeful overeating as opposed to what you're about to go into, which is a bit more targeted? Or would you, in hindsight, say, no, stick with the targeted approach, it isn't worth the fat gain? Is there benefits to having a bit more of a softer off-season prep, or do you think that does more harm than good?
Yeah, no, I look, like I just think that there's enough science to be able to indicate that a modest surplus is definitely better. I think that there's evidence to suggest, 250 to 500 calories of surplus is going to provide 90% probably of your muscle mass increases with minimal fat gain in the process. And yeah, if you go from 500 up to 1,000 plus, you are going to gain more muscle. No question about that. But it's not like this tremendous more muscle, but you are going to gain more fat as you go up and beyond 500 calories of surplus per day. So there's no real reason to do that. Like you're adding what you don't necessarily need at that point in time.
Do you think there's weight to the thing of like insulin sensitivity goes down and inflammation goes up, and after a while that rate of, yes, you go to 1,000 calories, you will gain more muscle, but not forever. You're going to get to a position where you're not in a good place to do it. Or do you think you still will?
Whatever that P value is that seems to be like, hey, you're in a really good physiological status to be able to gain muscle going forward. It does seem that for, all like if you are leaner, up to a certain point, you don't have to be 5% body fat, but like if you're leaner, you're going to be able to gain more muscle tissue. And I don't think we know all the mechanistic reasons. It's not just insulin sensitivity or any of those things. It's like, it just seems as though there's something about being leaner that allows you to gain muscle more so than if you are fatter. So, yeah, I think and it's also just like way less horrible when you go to do a fat loss in the future too. Like it's just not, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Because that fat loss, it's interesting. Like the fatter you are, the easier it is to lose fat, you know? But at the same time, you still have to lose all that fat. It almost reminds me of like, you know, we know from a relative effort standpoint, like you have to approximate failure on your sets to provide a hypertrophy stimulus. But if you're doing a set of 25, you have to do all of these reps prior to 20, you know, 1 through 20, just to get to 20 through 25, where you're able to hit the reps to provide the stimulus. In some ways, it's like it might be a little bit easier to just start with a heavier weight so that you don't have to do as many lead-up reps to get to the point where you're doing those stimulative reps. You know, that's a blanket statement. It's not exactly perfect. There's obviously some exercises that make sense to do for sets of 20 to 30 and other exercises that make sense to do from, you know, 5 to 10 and 10 to 20 or whatever. Like I wouldn't want to do, you know, single arm tricep cable exercise for 5 to 10. It's just like a bad choice. And I also wouldn't want to do like some kind of a compound squatting exercise for 20 to 30. Like let the exercise sort of lead itself to its rep range. But in terms of the fat loss stuff, it's like it's going to suck at some point eventually anyways. If you're really fat loss shouldn't suck that bad in the beginning. It just shouldn't. Like it's pretty easy. Okay. As you get leaner and leaner and leaner, it's going to suck more and more and more to get leaner. You know, it's like the stronger you are, the more it sucks to get even stronger. The leaner you are, the more it sucks to get even leaner. But from a psychological perspective, do you want to be trying to get leaner from a very lean place? Do you want to try to do that after you've gone through this extended long fat loss period just to get there? Or do you want to come into it psychologically fresh? Like I'm already lean. I'm ready to take this on and get super lean. I'm going to take the next 8 weeks and I'm going to just lock and load here. And if I get through this, the end product is going to be incredible, you know, versus like, man, I just went through 16 weeks to get to this pretty good place. Do I really have another 8 weeks in me to take this to an incredible place?
Yes, I think that's a really good analogy. And you mentioned earlier on about you ease into the process of dieting, like you weren't perfect, and you just sort of, and that's probably because the habits that you accumulated up until that point in 2020 means you can't just go a complete 180 from day one. Yep. Whereas if you're already in a lean place, you adding 500 calories onto that staple is a relatively easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think from a psychological perspective in terms of dieting, some people disagree with this, but I think the biggest head fucks come in the first 6 to 8 weeks. When I start seeing things, when I start getting leaner and it's changing week by week and I'm seeing things different, I'm looking good, I'm like, I'm loving this, I'm ready to go. But those first, I have dieted to, despite never stepping on stage, show levels of lean so many times in my life, yet every single time without fail, in the first 4 to 6 weeks, I'm going, is it working?
Yeah.
Weight's going down, but I just look like a smaller version of my fat self. and that's the head fuck. So if every time you get fat, you're now going into that point where you now got to psychologically go, I'm not sure. But if you're starting at 12%, it's like, cool, I know where I'm going with this. I can see it working straight away. Mentally, it's a different ballgame.
Yep. And that is, I really think that it's a big deal to actually, when you are in the hard part of dieting, like, you know, when you're lean and you're getting leaner, you should be doing things like taking pictures of yourself. And you should be like doing things that highlight for yourself psychologically, like, damn, I look good. Like, look at this thing coming out. You need that reward because you're not getting the reward of satiety or tastiness. You know, it's like your brain needs rewards to keep going. Like there's no, if you don't have a reward, chances are you're not going to continue to pursue that thing. You know, that's the hardest stuff in my mind.
Going back to a question I had at the start, you mentioned doing this as like a process for you is what's made this easier, right? Like doing this for you rather than external validation. we hear the phrase gold medal syndrome, where people go work really hard for the Olympics and then Monday happens.
Yep.
And that happens all the time. And you said this is what we are 2020. This started. We're now the end of 2022. You have been consistently progressing now for two years, almost 3. What is it that you think's helped you get into that process mindset where it's not perfectionism anymore? It's not all or nothing. This can be pushed forward. Is Athletic Weapon a part of this? Is like you're on show, or is there more things that's allowed you to keep you, in the game?
I think that Athletic Weapon's been big because I feel accountable. Like I want to lead from the front, and I document everything in that product. You know what I mean? It's like, in the write-up of the phase, it's like talking about, hey, here's exactly what I'm eating. Here's exactly what my measurements are. Here's exactly where I'm at from an output perspective. It's kind of a frame of reference. And it's also like, look, I'm doing everything that's written into this thing. I am doing it. I'm 100% compliant. Like, if you're going to get this product, you can kind of compare your results to the results that I'm getting. And I can guarantee you that I'm putting in full effort and 100% compliance to this product and to this program. And, that is what it is. You're not me. I'm not you. Maybe you have results that blow mine away. Maybe you have results that are terrible in comparison to mine. But there's at least some frame of reference. And it's like, I'm not going to try to blow any smoke up anybody's ass. Like, sometimes I fuck up in the program design, and the next block or the next phase that I write, I'm like, oh, that was a bad idea. We're going to go in this direction. Okay, my bad. Like, this was a misunderstanding. I calculated something wrong. This was a terrible idea. I'm going to own that. We're going to change, go forward. So it's kind of like, I think that there's a level of real strong, like, skin in the game for that product for me. And that's been a big deal. Like, I really wanted that particular product to be different from anything else that exists. I don't know what other coaches necessarily give for online products, but it's like, you know what? This is a journey. This is my journey that I'm welcoming you to take with me, and I think that a lot of people want that. Like, I feel like if David Goggins was like, here's my written out journey, and I'm actually going to get better at the scientific process of program design. And I think this is as optimal as it can get. And here's exactly what I eat. And here's the system that I follow for diet. I bet you a lot of people will be like, I fucking want that. I want to ride in his wake. I want to do everything he can, whatever he's doing, I'm on board because, like, I connect with this person. So that was a big part of it for me. But it was also like, I want there to be complete transparency for the person that is the subscriber, but also for me, for sure. It keeps me engaged and it keeps me accountable and motivated to continue to go.
I suppose going back to that maintenance thing, there's this when I was saying earlier on about there's a difference between your maintenance and someone else's maintenance, and it's that you are accountable to maintaining.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get lazy with maintenance because there's that accountability factor there.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting product. I think Athletic Weapon, because it's different to this one-to-one personalized online training, which I'm sure you could do an incredible job of with the years of experience and knowledge you have, and certainly with the work with your one-to-one. But from a marketing perspective, without going into making this a business topic, but people buy people. Storytelling is our best driver of sales and journeys and personal branding. And whereas someone generic online trainer number 3 might need complete personalized programs to get by, part of, certainly since I've started following you, part of your thing is, I follow Pat Davidson for Pat Davidson. Not he's smart and I love his products, but I started watching you from like the Clown College series and went, right, this guy's like no bullshit and a good laugh. So if I'm going to buy a product from you, I want to follow that story. Right. I want to follow that person, not just, well, let's just get a program because it's a program.
Right. I mean, I think that's definitely part. It wasn't really on my thought radar. My thought radar was much more like, man, there's way too many like special snowflake syndrome people out there. Like, you're not that unique. You know, you do not need the individualized, personalized program. You need to learn how to work hard and shut up and follow a program. And to me, if you're on a team, that always works better than going it alone. Like, every time I've ever been on a team, like when I was a professor at Springfield College, we had team iron sports, and we all followed the same program, just like a college football team would. This is what we're doing today as a team. And when everybody's doing the same thing, it ups the ante, because you're looking over and this guy's pushing really hard, and you better step your game up. And like, we're all running next to each other. And are you going to be the person that falls behind? Like, I think that we are kind of tribal pack animals. And when the pack drags you up, when you're part of a good pack and it's a bunch of bad motherfuckers, like, what are you going to be? Are you going to be the person that holds them back? I don't think so. We might leave you behind now. Like, there's no time for you. Either you're with us and you're making us better, or we're going to leave you behind. And that's my mentality when it comes to training. Like, it is me trying to help lead, but it's me just trying to assemble a badass pack. And if you guys are pushing harder than me, I ain't falling behind. I'm gonna dig my heels in, and I'm gonna work even harder to keep up with whoever it is that's pushing from the front. And I want to be right there next to you, pushing as hard as I can, matching you every step, or outpacing you, challenging you to work even harder to keep up with my pace. And to me, that is the missing piece that people don't talk about enough. Like, with the individualized program, I don't want to be individualized. I want to find other people that are going to create like group excellence that elevates me, that I think is stronger than anything I can do on my own.
Do you think, like this? I mean, I'm really intrigued to hear what you think about this next question, because for a person I think who has probably the most formal qualifications to talk about exercise mechanics, you teach it. I've studied a lot of what you do. With the trend of exercise mechanics now being bigger than ever, do you think that it's potentially more of a detriment now to the fitness industry than a benefit? And I say this because I remember when I first did RTS, and I like it, it's good, but again, we're now getting people 4 levels down teaching it. And I went in going, I'm squatting hard, I love training, I just love going in and training legs and smashing it up. And within a month, I was like, I can't do anything. I feel so fragile. I feel like my femurs mean I can't train any legs. Right. And I think there's more of these people now that it's harder for people to train. It's not harder, but people feel it's harder to train hard now because their brains are always on. So do you think the exercise mechanics craze has been a good influence or a bad influence overall, excluding rethinking the big patterns, of course, for the industry?
This is a great question. And, like I don't ever hesitate to say people's names or any of that stuff. I can remember when I was still at Hype Gym, I know Ben Giannis was starting to kind of go more towards that trajectory of like, the resistance training needs to be in these lines of pull and all this kind of angles and blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of like, I just disagree with you on this front. Like, I think that the mechanics optimization is important for changing table tests. I think that when it comes to core exercises and breathing, it's got to be really on point so that I can change table tests and give people back their range of motion. And then once they have established that, best case range of motion that I can get on their table tests, I certainly don't want to pick idiotic exercises for anybody, but I also I think that there's kind of like, you have your big categories of your compound exercises, and then you have your isolation exercises. And when it comes to compound exercises, it's this very big window of good enough. And as long as it's good enough, like, making it more targeted, I don't think is actually going to correspond with any more growth stimulus. And what I think will correspond with growth stimulus is going to be just being able to demonstrate progressive overload over time. You know, if you're witnessing the person making functional adaptations and the performance scores are going up, then the functional adaptations, including protein synthesis being greater than protein degradation, gains of muscle tissue, that will come along for the ride. But making the fitness exercises more, targeted is not the answer. Adding mechanical work and stress over time is the answer. And so long as it's like, this is clearly a fucking leg exercise. This is clearly a upper body pushing exercise. Like the minutia matters when it comes to changing table tests for small, whatever you want to call it, corrective exercises, core exercises, special bullshit, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But when it comes to fitness drivers, you know, I think you can see it from even the way people run. Some people run a little bit more fucked up than other people do. So long as they run and follow good program design, they're going to run more effectively over time. And it's like when you start getting into fitness and overcorrecting it, you are picking the fly shit out of the pepper. And I know that me trying to give that message, even back then, wasn't received all that well. And now I don't belong to that camp anymore. And I have a lot of bad feelings about a lot of the stuff at that place and a lot of the people associated with that place. I won't hold that back. You know, if you have a personal conversation with me, I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of really bad feelings about the way shit ended there and about the way that some things have gone since then. And yeah, like, that's on me. And part of that is me being like, you know, how much of that is me and my own shit and how much of that is other people and things that they've actually done that I didn't like. Probably some combination of those things. But I think that this is a discussion that's not necessarily personal for me. This is one where I feel like, but it's hard to separate those biases. You know what I mean? I always do my best to be like, I definitely have a bias that is negative towards the person in a discussion like this. But I don't want that to override the objective discussion as well. And on the objective discussion, when it comes to over-targeting, in my mind, the exercise and being overly critical of exercises that you feel are not targeted enough, I think that that is an irrelevant conversation for the most part, and that the window of acceptable exercise selection and exercise execution is very large when it comes to compound resistance exercise that can be progressively overloaded. And I really don't think we need to go much further in this discussion than to point out all of the people that have gotten enormously jacked for a long time, that have used a wide window of exercise selection and exercise execution, but the effort and the overload over time was the resultant factor for these people, combined with dietary protocols and drugs. Those are the things that cause people to get fucking jacked, not the minutia. And it's like, you know, like, watch a video of Jay Cutler training. Watch a video of Ronnie Coleman training.
Coleman training, yes. I was
Watch a video of Kai Green training. They're all
Branch Warren.
Watch a video of Dorian Yates training. They all
Branch
have
Warren when he's not falling off a horse, he's throwing weights around.
Yeah. Like, it's not, these guys are not doing the optimal stuff that the optimal fitness guys are talking about. It just isn't. It's like, you know, it would be like, hey, I've got this new optimal basketball program. And then you like watch videos of like Michael Jordan and Kobe training and LeBron training, and it just doesn't look anything like what you see those guys doing. And you're like, wait a minute. Like, I just think that like these guys got to where they are. They're the greatest of all time. And like, it's not what you're talking about. Like, I think that there's probably some things that you're talking about that are like potentially some good ideas. You know what I mean? Like, hey, if we avoid exercises that lead to unnecessary joint pain, probably a good idea. Like, keep the primary goals in mind. And if you can have exercises that give you the primary outcomes with avoidance of the secondary side effects, Cool. I think that's great. Like, I'm not doing my pulling training to have medial elbow pain. All right. So yeah, like, hey, if you're predisposed towards medial elbow pain, maybe a little bit more of a neutral grip might be a good idea. Okay. But you could probably sort of end the discussion there. You don't need to get into like, above and beyond that is not going to yield it. And like, you could probably, like I said, you could probably go on YouTube and put like Jay Cutler back workout and probably see him pulling on a straight lat pull down bar and like yanking it around with his body, swinging through space. And like, you can probably be like Ronnie Coleman shoulder development and see him in Metroflex on like the world's weirdest, most fucked up biomechanical shoulder press machine ever. And it's like, you can't get bigger shoulders than that, And I'm sure that there's other bodybuilders that are natural that have used a million different training methods as well. And they've all gotten jacked. So to me, it's kind of like and in particular, like when you don't have skin in the game, now it's like taking advantage of a couple of things. Number one, the negativity bias of humans. If I scare you, I'm going to get attention. The news has been doing that a million times. Oh no, pull-ups are bad. Oh no, the belt squat's stupid. Oh no, don't use the single rope with the two handles. You have to have two ropes next to you. Like, I have eyes and I can look at the history of resistance training, and I can also just look at what's happening, and it doesn't necessarily, like, I don't care how many skeletons you hold up with pelvis models or infographics. Like, all of these people throughout the history of training have done different things, and there's many roads that can lead to Rome. And this optimal road might be one that creates all of these nocebos and fucks with people's heads and ruins their effort and does all of these possibly deleterious things. What about that? You know what I mean? Can we talk about those factors that you might be feeding into people's brains? People that make progress are people that are on missions, that work hard, and no matter what gets in their way, they run it over. They're not people that are like I feel like picking the fly shit out of the pepper is the most appropriate statement imaginable. And when that is the main thing that you're doing, you're not building something, you're tearing things down. And there's a million nitpicky kids that raise their hand to correct the professor people out there. And they've been out there for a long time. And typically they don't really build things. They're just looking for an opportunity to sound smart and to look the part, but they're not really the part. They don't actually walk the walk. They're not the people that have the balls to step on stage. They're not the people that have the balls to compete in something. They just want to be on the sidelines, throwing their 2 cents in there. And it's like, I have always been a fearful person and an insecure person and a doubtful person and a skeptical person. But at the same time, I do have the balls to be like, you know what? I'm going to call it like I see it. And I'll name names and I'll say it directly and I'll be blunt. And I'll also compete. I'll put my hands up and fight. I'll get in the ring. I'll put myself under the spotlight. I will take the challenge and actually put myself in a place where I've got skin in the game. And I'm not doing it to make friends. I'm doing it because I really believe in certain things. And I want to move more and more to a place where I have integrity. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to follow through on it. And if I even sense that there's the opposite presentation, I'll call it out and be like, I challenge you. I challenge you to think about your approach and to be as honest as you can be. And I challenge you to actually put your money where your mouth is and step out there yourself rather than nitpicking and trying to pick things apart and tear things down. You try to build yourself. You take someone and you put them out there. And I just don't think that'll happen in response to this. But, I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think it's when we look at people, everyone's walked into a gym and see a person train like shit and looks jacked. You don't see a person with a 1 kilo squeezy pink dumbbell with the most optimal joint angles looking jacked. And I think we have a thing now where a lot of this stuff is useful, and there is tools in this. But people now, we've got a lot of coaches trying to be physios, and I think it falls into two camps now in the exercise mechanics. There's two polar sides: the vegan and the carnivore of the exercise mechanics world. We have the muscle mechanics crowd, which every exercise is matched to the resistance profile. There's daisy chains and bands coming out the yazoo where it looks more like a sex swing than a chest press. And we have the movement mechanics crowd, which everything's anterior pelvic tilt, gait cycle, breath work. And I look at these two things, and I've heard really smart people talk about bits of both of these. You've talked about things on both sides of that equation. But I look at that stuff and I go, right, what is really relevant here? What's important? If someone doesn't have overhead range and it's just going to go into their back and they get a lot of back pain, cool, stick them on an incline press. But the body is tight because the nervous system doesn't feel safe on a range. So the more I sit here with my 20-degree incline bench press, because that's where my overhead range apparently is, the more that's going to become my reality. And there's a middle ground here. I was like, as a coach, our job is find where's safe, that they can be stable, so they can train fucking hard and train them there. If you're focused too much on where their pelvis sits in space and where the ribcage angle is, more than is necessary, you haven't got an x-ray, so you're trying to fix something that may not be able to be fixed. Yeah. So find out where they can train hard, and if it gets better, fantastic. If it doesn't, you're not spending 40 minutes teaching somebody a contralateral hip shift breath work RDL drill. I'm like, train fucking hard.
Yeah. And, it's very population specific. For the general population, for people that are training for aesthetics, there is plenty of historical evidence to suggest the execution of that exercise needs to be okay. It doesn't need to be this truly outstanding, incredible. Now, as you become incredibly advanced, I think that you have to get a little bit more refined. There has to be a greater focus on creating a mind-muscle connection. Really, it's just time and place. For beginners, establish the habits and establish the mindset of consistent effort. For intermediates, they need to learn how to probably progressively overload and be able to make progress. Really, I think that's they have this opportunity now, and it should. For beginners, it's if you're trying to give them this strong mind-muscle connection, they don't what are you connecting? They don't have anything. It's like trying to teach a toddler calculus. Just start with the absolute basics and get them consistent and make it a fun experience. Once they're intermediate, build off of that basic acquisition and habits and make them actually go somewhere with those things. And now that someone is becoming advanced, they can really get into the nitty-gritty and intricacies of training. But let's be honest about what really advanced is. Advanced is someone that's been training hard for probably minimum 5 to 7 years. They live in a plateau. This is their motivation is never a problem for them. This is their life. This is they dream about it. This is everything to them. And most people don't qualify for that. So, and the other thing is if you're not, to me, general population and aesthetic driven people, it's one and the same almost. Even the general population people that say that their goals aren't how they look, that's their goal. It still is. But they're just beginners and at best intermediate. They'll never move to advanced. So it's always basics and habits and just getting them to learn to work hard and make as much progress as you can. You really almost never get them to the point where it's super focal mind-muscle connection sorts of stuff. It's more you're playing the tension game, the compound exercise game, the good enough compound exercise game, and quantitative progress.
And do they even want it, right? I went for a mentorship with Tom Hibbert in the UK. It was the world's under 90 strongman for a number of years. And I went, just tell me for 5 hours what you do for hypertrophy. And he went, well, I'll tell you in 30 seconds, and then we can talk strength. And he was what is the training stimulus and system that allows them to work as hard as possible to get as close to failure? And like when you look at that game for that general population, yes, in an ideal world, we want that client to get as close to optimal and tension and all this sort of stuff that we can properly progress the overload without that junk volume. But in reality, that client that might be their break from work, and they might just want to come in and throw shit around.
Yep.
As long as it's not dangerous, you've got to find where's that balance between optimal and engaging.
Yep.
And engaging is going to win in a hypertrophy battle every single time because they're going to push harder.
Yep, for sure. I think that outside of aesthetics, when you're working with athletes that compete in sports, and, I have my whole, training trajectories for different kinds of athlete stuff that takes a little bit of time to get into. But, there's plenty of athletes that have to be able to hip shift and have to be able to use a frontal plane and have to be able to use a transverse plane. And for them, that's in their needs analysis. I just think that it's all about creating an accurate needs analysis, quite honestly. Like, in baseball, a shortstop doesn't need to be able to look great, quite honestly. They don't need a ton of muscle mass. They don't need to be able to bench press anything, but they need to be able to rotate and get into their hip if they're going to field a ground ball on their backhand side and then pivot and throw a rocket across the diamond to the first baseman. And they need to be able to get into their hip to be able to properly have a follow through on their swing. Those are clay court tennis players need to be able to get into these lateral stances while they're sliding on clay, and they need to be able to turn and then create this incredible explosive transverse plane rotary display with light implements. They don't need to be particularly strong. I think if you were to, if I look at Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, if I brought them into a gym, I wouldn't expect any of these guys to bench press a lot. And if they did bench press a lot, I'd be like, you probably made yourself worse at tennis, But I need to have them be able to display big time levels of horizontal abduction of their humerus. If they don't have that, I'm like, ooh, this is a red flag, man. We got to do some real thoracic work here to be able to restore this motion of your humerus. That's way more important for you as compared to whatever diet you're on. So I think it's very population specific. And it comes down to the needs analysis. There's some athletes that do not need to be big, and being bigger might be a real detriment for them. What they need is they need to be able to turn in space. They need to be able to tumble. They need to be able to demonstrate large ranges of motion. And we need to be able to provide those elements in their training and avoid other elements that might take those gifts away. On the other hand, there's other athletes that need to be very big and very strong, and their sport is to not get turned and to not tumble because another big person is trying to turn them and tumble them. And how do I provide those stimulations in their training and then avoid the other things that might get them in trouble? So to me, it really does. It's I think that sometimes people think I might be an out of the box thinker, and I keep telling people, no, I'm as inside the box as you could possibly get. The big things I talk about, it's when I'm assessing someone, I'm trying to create a needs analysis, and I want to think about specificity of choices for this individual, and I want to think about great opportunities to provide them with overload to be able to go after the most important qualities that they have. And I also want to think about how do I avoid taxing this person with things that are potentially problematic for them and eliminate those parts, those potential training avenues that could actually be deleterious for this individual.
Deleterious is one hell of a word. That's got to be the best word I've had on the show in 105 episodes. So I love the needs analysis thing. And I think when we're looking at the general population, I have a wholehearted theory that they're their own needs analysis in their own. If we look at a spectrum, I think, between sort of the powerlifter and the bodybuilder. Now, the powerlifter would probably like to look a little bit better, but he doesn't care that much as long as weight goes on the bar. The bodybuilder would probably like to get a bit stronger, but as long as they end up looking better on stage, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
I think the general population client falls wonderfully in the middle here. And I think the closest thing I can compare this to, and maybe this is just because I'm a huge fan, I would like to think this is the case, is like a pro wrestler. A pro wrestler has to look good all year round and has to perform pretty well. A WWE pro wrestler, we're not talking about the flippy super kick guys, we're talking about Vince McMahon, big sweaty men, pro wrestlers. Because the general population clients, the goals are very similar to the bodybuilder, but if they're not getting stronger, if they get a bit of aches and pains, that will affect the psyche so much that they'll fall into a box of donuts. Yep. So you've almost got to give them that little bit of the strongman training to keep them motivated to diet and do their cardio, whilst giving them the bodybuilding training to make the physique look like it. It's a really unique, in like, people often want to progress to working with athletes, things like this. I think the general population is the hardest thing because you've got to balance training philosophy with mental motivation, let's say.
The best thing I ever heard on this was Mike Israetel talking about the training to fuckery continuum. And there's just so many elements of fuckery. But like, you can like just picture what fuckery is. It's like staying up too late, drinking too much on the weekend. It could be your diet falls apart on the weekend. It could be that when you're in the gym, you don't really have good range of motion. You don't have good technique. You cut your sets way too short of failure. There's literally an endless stream of fuckery as a potential thing to talk about. And there's new versions of fuckery that come around all the time, And even like trying too hard on a single set, it's like, no. The program said 2 reps in reserve. That was not just failure, but your idiot buddy assisted you on a couple of reps. So you're always trying to figure out, like, how far towards fuckery is this person, or how close to 100% non-fuckery based training is this person. And, generally speaking, you're trying to slide the person away from fuckery and towards training over time. And training itself usually is like, you have a general sense of what it looks like. It's like focused goals set, a methodology that involves like program design that's periodized and good exercise selection. And they just follow the program with great compliance and adherence. And it's like they're a pro at that point. They are a pro at training and using training to propel them towards their sport performance to the best degree possible. And so you have to determine, like, where is this person? And if they're general population, they come in and maybe they have some goals. They say their goals to you and you kind of like, hey, let's bring you there. But when you discover where on the path of fuckery to training they are, this is, I hate that outdated cliche of like, give them what they want, but then give them what they need, sort of a thing. Like, meet them at that place. You kind of meet them at their particular mile marker on the highway from fuckery to training. And you do try to match their corresponding latitude and longitude of fuckery with appropriate elements of like what that stereotypical fuckery level demographic usually responds to. Is it entertainment? Is it novelty of exercise? Is it what is it that they defines that realm of fuckery? And feed that to them as part of what's going on.
Do you think, not in the terms of the drinking the weekends and the sleep, but in terms of training, do you think that you almost need to push them to a level of fuckery to know what the optimal level of unfuckery is? So I have as much I love Mike Israetel stuff, but I have a love-hate relationship with the term reps in reserve. Uh-huh. Everyone's now banging out, especially these online coaches who have never been on the gym floor with a client. They go, you've got to have 2-3 reps in reserve. And I sit there and you've never worked with a client, because every time you get a brand new client, go, how many reps in reserve do you have? And you go, oh yeah, probably 1 or 2. Fuck off, mate. That's 26. The reps got quicker. They didn't slow down.
Right.
So I'm a big believer in like a challenge here. Like, let's go till it's a bit fuckery, and I'm going to teach you where one is. And if you don't know where failure is, you don't know where one is.
And I don't think that actually, I think that Mike's message is convergent with that message. I know that like their approach is they're going to start you with an estimated 3 reps in reserve on week 1 of whatever training day this is. And next week you have to beat that. And the week after that, you have to beat that. And like you're going to, from week 1 to the next time you do that same session, you're either going to increase load or reps or both. And, you know, you're going to keep increasing load or reps or both until the person hits failure. And so it's like, it's based on this assumption that, yeah, it's an estimated 3 reps in reserve on week 1. And the more that they're a beginner, the more inaccurate they're going to be. But eventually we're going to hit failure. And then we know, and then we can base everything off of knowing. But, you know, that's what he actually says and programs and recommends. But I feel like, again, it's like people miss that or something along those lines. They're like, oh, I didn't know that that's what his statement was. Like, you know, it's much more like you have to learn over time the accuracy of your reps in reserve estimations. But in order to be able to get better at that, yeah, of course there has to be times where that person goes to failure. It's just not going to be fun.
I also think as well, there's a lot of people that will look at this and not think about, well, okay, yes, this is the guidance that is often given by someone like Mike Issertel, and then not stop it and think, yes, but the clientele that people that come and go and work and train with Mike Issertel are people that have been in the game 8, 9, 10, 11 years. These are the people you would consider advanced. And that is a really good guideline. But then someone's read Mike Issertel's book and they're an online coach and they go, the book says 3 reps in reserve, so Sally from Ealing is going to get 3 reps in reserve. I'm like, different demographics, different thing entirely. Like, she needs to know where failure is first.
I will say Mike spent a good amount of time doing personal training in New York City. You know, like he's done this gig in one of the hardest places to do this gig. And, you know, it was like the stuff he was doing right before RP actually came around as a company. So you know, he understands the realities of like personal training. Like, it's not like he's blind to those things. I think it's much more of the ineffectiveness of the receiver of the message as opposed to the delivery.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, like where it's like, look, like, you know, assume that your 3 reps in reserve is wrong on week 1. And that's fine. It literally doesn't even matter where you start. Like, as long as you're not starting at failure, like, it doesn't matter because you can always go up, but you have to go up. Like, it's kind of like, to me, it's just a lack of appreciation of progressive overload, like a lack of appreciation of baseline and progressive overload. Because do you have to be patient? Like, kind of, slightly, but like that shit creeps up on you really fast. You know what I mean? Like, a couple of reps every week, a little bit of load increase every week. Like, within 4 or 5 weeks, like, it's getting really hard, and I'm learning and you're learning. And guess what? Like, we'll never go back to week 1 again. There's only there's like one direction that this train goes in. Like, it takes stops every now and then, but progressive overload is a motherfucker. Like, you know, like, and like, that is a principle, a backbone piece of training. So you better believe, like, it's not going anywhere in terms of, like, if you believe in scientific materialism and empirical processes and training principles, well, then you understand progressive overload and you understand how fucking nasty that concept really is. Because, man, take advantage of those early times of easy progressive overload, because it's going to go to some really dark places eventually.
Tell me a little bit about the advice you give on spending more time in the length and range hypertrophy.
I mean, there's just a mounting body of evidence at this point that seems to be showing that lengthened position of an exercise or of the joint overall is seemingly the primary driver of the tension element that is the hypertrophy, the tension stimulator of hypertrophy. There's a number of stimulators of hypertrophy. There's metabolites and volume and blah, blah, blah. But you know, tension is the primary signal that is received by, you know, organelle that are in kind of like the intercellular matrix and on the cell membrane and various places throughout the body that are going to signal into the nucleus and affect both like the transcription and the translation processes of protein synthesis. And so it's always like to me, like, a lot of these conversations, they go to the central dogma theory of Watson and Crick. Like, you have an environmental signal that is received by the DNA, and then there is a signal to the RNA, and the RNA carries the message, and there are going to be proteins built as a result of RNA message. Like, it is environment to DNA to RNA to protein. And that's everything. That is the central dogma theory. Okay? So what are the elements that you can affect? Generally speaking, you can affect the environmental signal. And we're always searching through science to understand what is the real clear-cut specificity of environmental signal. And it seems as though there's a strong indicator at this point in time that it is lengthened position tension that is the main hitter for that signal at this point in time. So as like a easy takeaway, like, triceps are elbow are humeral extensors. So I will put them in a lengthened position by putting the humerus in flexion. And then if I do my elbow extension exercises from a greater position of humeral flexion, I will be putting the muscle into a lengthened starting position. And that seems to be a better place to provide the tension signal for the central dogma theory. And, the other part of that seems to be if you were, and I think this was like with knee extension exercises, if you take a look at different groups that use that same exercise and you divide them into, we have this full range of motion group, and then we have partial range of motion. They're only going to do the shortened part near lockout. And then we have the third group, partial range of motion. They're only going to be doing the bottom of the motion. The partial bottom of the range of motion group had the same increase in muscle mass as the full range of motion group. And the partial top of the motion group had like terrible results. They were statistically significantly worse compared to the other two groups. But there wasn't really any difference between full range and partials at the bottom. So it's beginning to indicate that if like you really need to get into the full negative part of the exercise and spend time there with the movement. And who knows, maybe in a few years we'll be saying like, don't even bother with full range on the short part. Like, that's just wasted energy. Like, all you really need to do are like pulses in the bottom and in the stretch, like get into a chest exercise that puts your arms way back and stretches your pecs out and just kind of pump that thing for
what John Meadows has been anecdotally doing for years, may he rest in peace, right? With the loaded stretching and all that sort of stuff, and Mike Menson, all that sort of guys. Like, do you reckon that would be relatively joint specific, where if you've got muscles with resistance profiles where you're going to go from weak, strong, weak, that's having a mid-range challenge may be more beneficial because it'd be easier to progressively overload that and in turn create more mechanical tension than a length and range challenge where you couldn't progress it as quickly?
I'm totally fine with saying, I don't know. I just think that this is like very interesting stuff. Into a weird mode. Okay.
Yeah, we got you back. We got you back.
Yes, every now and then, because I'm on my phone, I'll get like some call that comes in. But yeah, I like I said, I'm skeptical, and I think that right now we're at this place where like this research information is something that we're all trying to like deal with. It's like, how valuable is it to do mid zone, end zone, beginnings? Who knows? Like, it's just like so far from this. Here's one of the things I always think to myself: don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because you get some new piece of information. like the new piece of information is like really interesting, and like you can't throw it out. You can, like, once science is like statistically significant finding and it's being reproduced, you're like, well, this is correct. There is no debating this. Okay, so if I'm really serious about growing muscle tissue, I better get into lengthened positions. Otherwise, I'm really missing out on what seems to be the most potent part of the most potent stimulator of growth. Okay, but it doesn't mean that everything else is irrelevant. With muscle tissue, I think of it as most things, because that central dogma theory always is where you return to. And it's kind of like it's an environmental signal that gets sent to the nucleus that starts the DNA to RNA to protein cascade. And so it's the word environment is really important. And it's like I return to thinking about like the outdoor environment of the world. And the most potent stimulator of the outdoor environment is the sun. Okay? What is the overall impact of solar load that you're experiencing? And if you're in Greenland, it's going to be different than if you're on the equator in Africa. But that doesn't mean that that's the only factor of the environment. Like if it's raining, that changes everything. Okay? If there's a tremendous amount of wind, that changes everything. And every exercise, it's kind of like, well, there's the sun, and that is tension. And probably some feature of loaded, lengthened tension is a good idea. Like you want the sun to be present. But then it's kind of like, well, the sun is a factor right now, but it's really windy or something along those lines. Like this exercise itself lends itself to this other environmental impact being a major presence here. And, we didn't really know that because the research didn't measure that at this point in time because we're still such a new field. And it's kind of like chances are that the heuristics that the people of long ago that have figured out how to grow tissue, like there's a reason why things like triceps pushdowns are still used. There's a reason why preacher curls have survived the test of time. There's a reason for probably everything. Just because you don't know it, or you think, I think this is a folly of youth. You think you've stumbled across this wellspring of information, and now I am the incredible guru of hypertrophy, and all bow down to me and my vast knowledge. It's like no. Do yourself a favor. You are literally being Icarus flying too close to the sun on wings that are held together by wax. You don't know that this is a problem because you have not been around long enough to experience when your golden goose egg cracks and falls apart and the yolk oozes through your fingers. Like everyone in this field that has been smart and put all of their eggs into one basket has invariably seen the basket vaporize and the eggs crack. And it's just like, oh my God, I was so sure that this was right. Well, it's not right because everything's right until it's wrong. And then you discover like, oh, there were like 7 other factors that were involved with this. And like, how about that? And so to me, that's just kind of like, it's still like, wow, this is super interesting. And this is a really important concept. But I'm certainly not going to abandon all of the tried and true and tested and time-vetted approaches that people that have cared about this for a long time have used.
I've also got a weird relationship with trying to find optimal. Our pursuit in what we do is to try and find truth. What is the most efficient way of achieving this goal? And while I'm never going to stop trying to do that, we spoke about earlier on about like this need to control stuff and learning through trying and learning through failures at the start of this show. If we just had the answers, if someone did this tomorrow and goes, this is the only exercise you need, never do anything else. As great as it is that we'd all build muscle easier, it takes a lot of purpose out of this. And I wouldn't take back the years of me banging my head against a wall, feeling insecure, feeling like an imposter, feeling unsure. Like one of my big things I said off the air that I've launched my education product for coach on the market, and my big MO is helping younger coaches overcome imposter syndrome. And one of the big things in this is reframing it. I had a group of coaches who asked me a while back, he goes, when did you get over your imposter syndrome? And I don't think I have, but I wouldn't want to, because it's that imposter syndrome is the reason why I've invested on thousands of pounds worth of education, why I've found mentors, why I started a podcast and like get smart motherfuckers like you on the show. Like if I didn't have that and I thought I was this guru, if I was flying in with wax wings into the sun, it'd be way more fucking boring. It's that pursuit of trialing and error and falling over on your face that makes this an interesting field.
It's funny. Like I had this conversation recently with somebody, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Is for me, I can accept the hard work that goes into the gym very easily. You know what I mean? And I actually like it. Like I like knowing I got a hard ass workout ahead of me. You know what I mean? Because I know that I put that effort in, I get uncomfortable, and it's part of the process that leads to a really great outcome and growth and change. And, life, on the other hand, like can really kick you in the ass. And that stuff is incredibly uncomfortable. And I don't want that. I don't want that discomfort. I don't want the personal discomfort of life and turmoil and personal relationships challenged and business challenged. But you know what? Like, to me, like reframing it, like, you know what? I'm uncomfortable in life right now, socially, personally, business-wise. Actually, I should be embracing this, because if I work hard through this and I learn to navigate this, it's no different than training in the gym. It's literally no different. I'm just a beginner in this realm of like life challenge, whereas I'm more advanced in gym challenge. A lot of other people might be reversed, but it's kind of like I have awareness of like, man, if I bust my ass in this set of squats and I do it right, like I know the outcome is going to be great, versus like, if I am someone that follows through with integrity and I do what I said I was going to do, even though I'm finding life really challenging right now, I'm going to be a better person as a result of this. I'm going to train myself to deal with the discomfort of life and get better at being able to deal with that going forward. And as a result of that, I become a better version of me as a person, on a personality level, on an emotional level, on a friendship level, on a partner level, on a son level, on a sibling level, on supporting other people level. And that is like, like all I got to do is learn to embrace the suck of the hard parts of life that challenge me as a person. And if I don't bitch out and stop my life set at 25 RIR and beg to tap out of this program, guess what? If I can do this for 6 months or a year, imagine the difference in who I'm going to be and how other people will perceive me and how much I can contribute to the world if I endure this and I suffer through this and I speak my honest self and I don't back down in fear and I challenge other people in not just an asshole manner, but a supportive manner. There's so many growth opportunities that you can have. And so, it's just like, it's literally like we all probably have certain avenues where we've done well in life. And if you can learn from those experiences and apply them to the avenues where you're struggling or you haven't developed yourself as much, and you're willing to endure that discomfort, like anything that's new for you, you're not going to be good at. It's going to be clunky. You're going to put your foot in your mouth. You're going to look and act like a beginner. But if you stick with it, you won't be a beginner forever. And pretty soon you might actually get good at it. But having the balls to be a beginner in something is to me, a courageous act that even if you're failing in the beginning, because you're going to fail, there's courage there. And you should be proud of yourself whenever you take that challenge on.
I also think in the way the world's going now with more distractions than ever before, we're now in a world where everything is so comfortable. If we want food, we can go on Deliveroo. If we want to watch them, we can go on Netflix. If we want a hand job, we can probably order that into the house too. You know, like everything is so comfortable. I'm so glad that I found something like training that's uncomfortable, that teaches me, right, what do I do when life does this to me? Like this, like we see people seeking out this now that life's got discomfort. People are seeking out like ice baths and the Wim Hof technique and flotation tanks. And my idea of a nice Saturday afternoon is going and being uncomfortable because they haven't found something like this. And I did one of the Wim Hof breathing things about ice baths, and there's all these health benefits I generally believe. But the big thing about this stuff is like, if I can control my breathing in a bath of ice, which sucks, when life makes my heart rate go like a bath of ice or a 1 rep in reserve on a pendulum squat, I now have a resilience of being able to go, do you know what, this is all right. And to use your analogy from the last time you came on the show, it's the dark side of the mountain. The more times I go through it, I know what's coming around the other end. And if I don't have that, this is where now we're going back to the start where we talked about psychopaths and serial killers. When someone doesn't have that coping mechanism, when life gets hard, what does it do?
And you know, that dark side of the mountain is a place that you should evaluate the terrain in. Don't be an ostrich and stick your head in the sand. Take a look around and have the courage to actually do an inventory check of the accuracy, like accurately appraise what it's actually all about. What are the signs and symptoms of this place? And when you can build that awareness of knowing all of the elements, you're going to have a much more accurate understanding of like, oh, I'm starting to act like this. I'm starting to feel these feelings. My mind is starting to go into this loop. It goes into this loop when I'm in this place. That's all this is. It's like I'm in this place and the module in here that is that tape recording message turns on. That's all this is. It's just an indicator that I'm in this environment. And I've been in this environment before. I don't need to overreact to it. I just need to be aware of it because this is a slippery, more dangerous terrain compared to the easy side. I can skip and frolic and be like easy breezy over there. But you know what? For myself and for others, I need to be highly aware of myself right now because there's rocks and crags and slippery slopes and loose pebbles and roots and all kinds of stuff and ice. And if I slide, I'm going down and I might take other people with me. And I don't want to do that, you know? So it's just, again, like that courage of like, you know, to me, like you have to evaluate your shadow self, you know, get to know it. Like, what are the parts of you that you don't like? Right. Like, you know, can you be a nasty prick? You know, when somebody questions you, do you have thin skin and are you super reactive? Be honest with it. Like, it's not the end of the world to actually open your eyes and look at that stuff. Take it in, embrace it. You know, if you have challenging relationships with another person, actually really look at that person, their full scope of humanity, and like appreciate that like they have struggles just like you do, and that these are their bad coping mechanisms. And maybe you want them to be different, but they're not different. This is who they actually are. You know, can you take that in? Can you not live in denial? Can you openly look at hard things to look at? Like, look at it. Like, I almost picture like a Clockwork Orange with peeling the eyelids open. Fucking look at this shit.
Yeah.
Get to know it. Like, a lot of people just pretend like those parts of themselves don't exist. And if that's all you do, you'll never change. And again, like, real change sucks. If it's in the gym, it's the stuff that sucks, you know? And then look, like we were talking about maintenance earlier. If you go through some hard-ass work, sometimes you need maintenance on a personal level, on a fitness level. You know, you got to coast for a little bit. You got to recover because that real hard shit is going to take a toll on you. And you're going to have some regressions and some hard days. And, you know, that perfectionism streak, not every set's going to be great. Not every one of your responses is going to be great. But is it getting better over time? Are you experiencing progressive overload? Can you handle more challenging situations in your life? You know, to me, like, you can understand all the secrets of the universe and life through training. The more you understand training principles, the more you'll actually understand yourself. And the more you understand yourself, the more you'll be able to learn how to train effectively.
Couldn't agree more. So that being said, I want to go into a couple of closing questions that you can either be quick fire, or if it goes off into another mountain story, then feel free. But first one is like, what was the toughest experience you've had so far on an athletic weapon program?
Oh, like just like the hardest shit ever?
Yeah.
I would say probably the 6 weeks I spent in Texas last year on a running block. You know, I got down there and I didn't realize it, but I had COVID when I arrived. And, next day I was out there, and I got there in August. And it was Austin, Texas, which is East Texas, and it's very humid. But it was also over 100 degrees for the first, 3 weeks that I was there. You know, I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it is fucking raw, like red Mars hot. And so I remember that first day out running on the track, it was 1 p.m, melt your brain hot. I had COVID. It was a hard conditioning day. And I remember at a certain point leaning against the fence under that heat, and it felt like my heart was going to come through my chest. And I remember just thinking to myself, I think this is what dying probably feels like. You know, I think that this is probably the experience. And I was like, I think that there's a small chance I might die on this track right now. And there was part of me that was like, that's fucked up. But then there was another part of me that was kind of like, if I die on this track in Texas right now, that's not the worst way to go. All right. So I remember the guy I was training with was like, what, are you done? You can't handle this heat? And I was like, nah, fuck you, man. I can handle this. And went back and did some more. And then it was I remember getting back to the place where I was staying after that and literally passing out almost immediately. And I think I slept for 18 to 20 hours. Got up the next day, felt pretty good, went back out and trained. And, but it was day after day after day for 6 weeks, and it was over 100 degrees most of those days. And I'm not from a place where it's that hot. And it was just an uncomfortable, I went on that trip to really work a lot of therapy and work a lot of 12-step recovery stuff and to train. And I did that. And I meditated for big chunks of the day, and I was in meetings, and I was training in the other parts of the day. And I was working through a lot of personal stuff, and I was in seclusion for those 6 weeks. And overall, it was just honestly, I did a lot of crying. I did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of screaming by myself. I did a lot. I was quiet. I spent large parts of the day just being quiet and not talking to people. And there was no single day down there that was comfortable for me, really, on any level. And I'm so glad I went through that experience. I went down there a week after doing an ayahuasca ceremony, and that ceremony was uncomfortable. And it set me up to be uncomfortable for 6 straight weeks and to be away from everybody and not in contact with anybody. I was not in contact with anybody. I went down there and I basically went into isolation and training and reflection and journaling. And like I said, existing in a deeply, deeply uncomfortable place. And by the end of it, I was severely depressed, to tell you the truth. I had ripped open very old wounds, and I came back to New York and I was really raw, and I was just in probably the most vulnerable state I've ever been in my life. And when I got back here, I felt as though a couple of experiences were very misunderstood for me. And I felt like some really critical people in my life turned their back on me at the most vulnerable time of my life. And it put me into the worst depression I've ever been in my life. And, it's been a year now since that point, and I've been uncomfortable this whole year. But during that discomfort, I haven't missed any training sessions. I haven't missed really following a diet that whole time. I haven't missed therapy. I haven't missed my recovery. I haven't succumbed to old problems that I've historically gone into. And I'm a different person now compared to where I was a year ago. I am more open. I am more myself. I'm less afraid of consequences of being myself. I don't need what I used to need. And I'm beginning to become grateful for that experience. But I'm not there yet because in truth, I'm still bitter and I'm still angry and I'm still sad and I'm still all of those things that come along from that level of discomfort and pain and disappointment. And I'm working through that. I'm not where I was in terms of being destroyed a year ago. Destroyed, like as a person, destroyed, rock bottom. But I've got a long way to go right now, and a part of that journey is athletic weapon and following a diet and sticking to everything with self-care and not being afraid to be vulnerable and fuck it, like I'll talk about it, like this is me, this is my reality, and if it is a reality that other people correspond with, that makes sense to them, that gives them some degree of connection and courage and strength, good, because it's not fake. I'm not fucking fake. I live in one of the fakest places in the world, in my opinion, New York City. Everybody's trying to pretend that there's something they're not. And I will not do that. I will not fucking do that. If I'm angry about something, I'm angry about that thing. If I'm sad, I'm sad. If I'm disappointed, I'll say it and I won't hide. So that's kind of my reality right now.
I think that says a lot about your character and the reason why you've got where you are. And like that could be another podcast in itself, especially when it starts with an ayahuasca ceremony. That's always an interesting experience. But I think that's a part 3. Otherwise, it'll be 4 a.m. here and we'll still be chatting away. But like, what is the biggest thing you've learned through this process since January 2020 to now? That
it is a process and that it doesn't end. And life itself is the ultimate test of, I do love the word integrity. I feel like I've used it a number of times. And integrity to me is progress. Like I'm so disappointed in the things that I violate in my own integrity on a daily basis. I don't follow through with everything I said I was going to do. But I've gotten a lot better at it than I was a year ago, than I was 5 years ago. I get emotionally aroused and I have reactive responses to that. And oftentimes I'm like, man, I wish I didn't react that way. But you know what? Every time I'm honest, even if it's a reaction, it's still putting reality out there and it's not hiding from reality. It's not that ostrich with its head in the sand concept that I talked about before. And I don't want to be that. Like I would rather take the consequences of putting my foot in my mouth and interacting with reality on my own terms of reality as compared to hiding and pretending and being fake, because we all, people talk, and I feel like the world is almost starting to sound like an Instagram mindset meme. Your authentic self and all these things. Your authentic self is a fucking hard place to live. And you're not going to be friends with everybody if you're your authentic self. And you're going to say things that some people aren't going to like. And there's consequences to being your authentic self. Are you willing to live with those consequences, good or bad, and still move forward and become even more of your authentic self?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly really relate to that. And like the Instagram meme thing is very interesting because most people, what they think of their authentic self isn't anywhere near. They've lost contact so much of what is their authentic self that you don't even know what it looks like anymore. And I'm, very much like yourself in the sense that I'm very much a person, especially with ADHD and struggling with impulse control. I will say whatever I think, whenever I think it, all the time. And I put my foot in my mouth more than most people you've ever met. And this year, more than ever, it's got me in a lot of trouble. And, it's one of the things that I might tell you about off air, but like, it's been a difficult year for me for that exact same reason. People trying to stamp down on you shouldn't be yourself here. You shouldn't say your experiences. And I think it's admirable the more that people do. So what is one thing you've changed your mind on?
Wow, that's a very that's a tough question. Like, I changed my mind on my own mindset when it comes to anger. Like I have a default of going to anger, and I think that I do that. I think I used to be like, well, I'm angry for these reasons, like this other person's incompetent, or I'm justified in it, or something along those lines. And I've come to realize that I go to anger because I like being angry, because other feelings for me are harder to deal with, and I don't understand them as well. Anger is actually a fuel for me, and it's a comfort zone for me. Whereas, some of the other feelings are ones that I don't have as much time in, and are actually probably more accurate for where I would be in certain settings, like, embarrassed, or, sad, or those kinds of things. And so it's like I've had to change my mind on literally my responses to the world, where it's like, I'm choosing, like, I have a long history, a path of least resistance towards anger, because anger is easier for me than some of these other places. So yeah, I got to change my mind on what I think is my own reality, because I'm actually forcibly going to a place that's not an accurate reflection of how I actually feel in a situation, because it's easier for me to go there.
I love the answer. And I like the first episode. This has been one of the episodes I've enjoyed recording probably more than almost any other. And part of the reason is, if I asked that same question to 100 other strength coaches, they would talk me about, this is what I changed my mind about exercise mechanics. This is what I changed my mind about calories and protein. And I never, ever know the answer that's going to come out of your mouth. And it's never an answer about training. There's so much more to you than the gym. It's just a part of your life, which I think again, says a lot about you as a person. So that's what I've got is, in hindsight, what would you teach 20-year-old Pat Davidson?
20-year-old me was having significant issues with cocaine and alcohol, marijuana, pills. That was a very sad person. And I don't think I would even try to teach that person anything. I think I would just give that person a gigantic hug. And I think I would just try to take him in and try to be the father for that person that he never had. I would teach that person love and care and warmth, and let them hit things to try to get rid of some of that anger, and to hug that person after that response, and to let that person know that they have a lot of strength, and that they have a lot of gifts, and that they are justified in a lot of the pain that they're existing in. And that, don't be so hard on yourself for these mistakes that you're making. Like, you're going to be all right, but stop hurting yourself so much.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible answer. And so, again, to stop this being a 4 a.m. podcast, and you are more than welcome to come on a round 3 and we can talk ayahuasca and whatever else you like. But for anyone that's listening to this and didn't know you coming onto the show and has gone on a 2-hour journey of learning all about Pat Davidson, and how can they not go and follow you after this? Tell people where to find you. Tell them about where to get Athletic Weapon, and just an overview of.
Yeah, I mean, Instagram's probably a central hub, and it's at Dr. Pat Davidson. It's Dr. Pat Davidson. And, there's the bio link that goes to Linktree, like most other people have that have products, and, everything's in there. I still get people that ask me like, hey, I can't find this thing. And I'm like, okay, I'll go to my own bio link and I'll copy and paste it for you. I get it. Like, I'm pretty technologically non-savvy myself, but yeah, as long as you have a modicum of any technological understanding, everything is through Instagram. Go to the bio link and the Linktree, and you'll find everything I've ever done. That's a product in there.
There's a wonderful thing about amateurness on Instagram, though, right? Everything's. I know for a phase where everyone was doing carousels to the point where I'd have to scroll about 20 minutes to find out what that person actually looks like on Instagram. And I as much as like your content at the moment is better than ever. It's polished, it's good, it's well mic'd up, it sounds good. I kind of do miss the multicolored squares and captions. Like that was what I knew you for such a long time.
You know what? Everything comes back, you know.
I am going through that phase myself of like all these good high production videos, and now it's just me on my phone sounding rubbish, stick it straight up, and off it goes, like unfiltered, unedited.
Well, hey,
mate, this has been an
pleasure
absolute pleasure as always, man. Thank you.
You know, there's the dynamic here works really well, and it brings out some really great topics.
It's good to know. Well, mate, I appreciate that. The podcast is a passion project, so it's always good to hear someone like yourself say that. So thank you very much again, man. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.